Hello and welcome. My name is Sabrina and this is Stylish and Sustainable. If this is your first time here, I'm glad that you found your way. I started Stylish and Sustainable to empower women to live more sustainably, not only for themselves, but also for the planet and for people around them. Every week we sit down and I give you the tools to live more sustainably and to start rocking your life and living a life that you love to be living. Before we dive into our episode today about a force that has insane power on our global economy, our self-esteem, and the environment, I want to make sure to thank our sponsors. Today's show is brought to you by Audible. Audible is offering our listeners a free audiobook with a 30-day trial membership. Just go to audibletrial.com/stylish and sustainable and browse the unmatched selection of audio programs. Download a title free and start listening. Okay, guys, so today we're going to be talking about three different things: capitalism, the environment, and self-identity. Those are huge concepts, but we will say that there is one force that affects all of those different concepts, and that force is fads. Before we dive into talking about fads, I want to ask a simple question that I'm going to give you a couple seconds to think on. Have you ever, when you're walking through the mall or scrolling through an Instagram feed or looking at Pinterest or flipping through a magazine, seen something that made you feel inadequate, ugly, subpar, not cool, lame, throw in the adjective of choice, and acted on that by buying something? Maybe you said no, but the likelihood is that you said yes. I mean, I would definitely say yes to that. And the reality is that, in some senses, for the marketer, that's a good thing, because it's marketing's job to make us feel lame or not cool, so they can convince us that our value and that our lives would be better if we were to go buy item X, or if we were to look like this girl on a magazine cover, or on your Pinterest feed, or your Instagram feed. Besides obviously playing havoc on our self-esteem and causing us to, in a lot of senses, I think, rethink our self-identity, it also has really serious social and environmental ramifications to constantly have us thinking that in order to be cool or to have personal value or to be happy, we need to buy things. When we are constantly made to feel that we're not enough, we buy things to try and become cool or beautiful. We know that that's the truth. I have done this. I know we've all done this. And this constant buying and upgrading, not only does it put an insane strain on our pocketbooks, it also really puts a strain on the environment and on communities across the world that have to make this stuff, especially if we're getting it for cheaper than it actually should cost. That's a great transition to talking about something that, as an economic major, we look at a lot. Don't get me wrong, I love living in a free market, and I will say that before I dive into this. But as an economic major, I also understand that a free market doesn't account for something that's called externalities. Externalities is just a big fancy word for things that aren't accounted for by dollar signs. So externalities are things like the fact that a lot of big businesses pollute the air, land, and water, and they misuse and take advantage of impoverished communities, both here in the States, if you live in the United States, and abroad. And they do this because they don't have to pay for it. And that's what makes it an externality. So it's external from the marketplace. It makes production a lot cheaper for them, and it also makes products and the cost of these products a lot cheaper for us. But what the problem is that we pay for these externalities, these things that aren't given dollar signs, in poor health, bad air, degraded land, polluted communities. The list goes on and on and on, because all of these things aren't factored into the cost of production, like pollution or slave labor and deforestation. It actually helps to make products a lot cheaper because these companies are cutting corners and they're not the ones that have to pay for it. when these same companies aren't paying for all the nasty ish that they do, and they're constantly convincing us that we're not enough, naturally, we end up buying things like new clothes and electronics and makeup and this and that, all to be cool or to be exciting or to be skinny or to be beautiful, blah, blah, blah. Add your own adjective there. This just keeps us essentially feeding into this weird loop of low self-esteem on our part and environmental destruction and bad things to communities abroad and more money going into the pockets of big business. So that's the whole side of capitalism there. That's my rant on capitalism. How do we stop this? This is where our self-esteem comes into play. And this is where we can combat things like fads. Fads, I should have definitely defined this earlier, are essentially just trends. A fancier word for a fad would be like a consumer trend, you know? The things like fidget spinners and having a short bob with light wavy hair or being tan, another great consumer trend. So how do we stop this? It's really hard and there are definitely a lot of steps, but like I said, the basis of it is in our self-esteem. The first step to stopping all of this nastiness actually is just realizing that you personally are beautiful and perfect, trendy and confident, just the way you are. You don't need to be on board with the newest trends to be cool because you are already the coolest you that you can possibly be. Having this mindset of being cool the way you are, naturally awesome, helps you to pass up on consumer trends and essentially helps you to stop the loop of buying that really kind of leaves everyone except for a couple of CEOs in an office somewhere a lot less well off. It doesn't benefit anyone, especially not us, because we feel like crap about ourselves. This doesn't mean, and I don't want to say this at all, that we shouldn't try to improve ourselves. But what it does mean is that we don't need the coolest new shoes or the trendiest new diet or even the newest electronics to be cool, to have value, because we have value innately, just as being, and we are all beautiful how we are, with our acne and our pale skin and our lame closets. Lame in air quotes. The next time you see an ad or a post on social media that makes you kind of feel bad about yourself, this is what I want you to do. These are your action steps. Close the phone or the laptop or put down the magazine or whatever your stimulus is and just go to a different room that has a mirror in it. Sit down in front of the mirror, look yourself in the eye, and repeat your version of this mantra. It doesn't have to be exactly this. You can customize, but this is what I would say. I am perfect how I am. I am grateful for what I have, and I don't need anything more than self-love and kindness to be beautiful. I'll say that one more time so y'all can get that. I am perfect how I am. I am grateful for what I have, and I don't need anything more than self-love and kindness to be beautiful. This mantra and this whole kind of idea of stopping the cycle is using gratefulness and gratitude as kind of like a tool for self-improvement and to boost our self-esteem. The idea of gratitude being something that helps us to become better people is actually a thing. As a yoga teacher, we talk a lot about the idea of santosha. So it's one of the yoga niyamas, and you can Google that, and I'll probably talk about them later down the road. But they're kind of like rules of living. And the whole idea is that if you can learn to be grateful and content with who you are and what you have, that is a key element to true happiness, and some would say enlightenment. Notice, however, that I'm not telling you to go buy a gratitude journal. I'm not telling you to go buy a gratitude journal. Just learn to be content and recognize the beauty of who you are now in this moment. That's what I'm telling you to do. Because if we can learn to do this more often, we can also learn to recognize when buying can actually benefit and improve ourselves, and how to buy so that we don't feel guilty and we aren't complicit in all the nasty ish that the big businesses are a part of. But the key is that until we have, we'll call them strong self-control muscles, then it's good to just go by the rule that if you're buying something because you think that it will make you prettier or skinnier or nicer or calmer or will otherwise somehow fix you, just don't buy it because you don't need to be fixed. That's the truth. So, in summary, consumer trends, or as we're calling them, fads, make everyone feel like shit. The consumer in us and the environment and the people who are just being unfairly paid and treated to make the products overseas are all suffering. And the only people that are benefiting are the rich people that are already rich. And you don't need anything more to be beautiful. That is the most important message of this podcast. If we can all just learn to understand how much value and beauty we have without doing anything to ourselves or buying anything, it will be the first step to some really amazing things that happen. It will be like the really tiny snowball that ends up being this massive snowball at the end of the hill. Because what it does is it allows us to move forward loving ourselves. And if we can love ourselves in a healthy way, it allows us to have more compassion and empathy for other people. And it also helps us to have a strong self-identity and a strong self-esteem that allows us to say no to all of these different things that make us feel less than and then encourage us to buy more because we aren't cool. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this little pep talk and this truth time and that you take it to heart and that you use that action step the next time that you come in contact with something that is claiming that it will make you better in some way. Skinnier, prettier, nicer, calmer, cooler, tanner. That you'll step away and just repeat the mantra that you really are. You're beautiful, you're grateful, and you don't need anything more than self-love and kindness to be perfect how you are. All right, gals, that is your little nugget of wisdom from me. Wisdom. And I will see you guys next week. I'm so excited about this episode. I'm sitting down with Julia from A Curated Thrift, and we are talking about sustainable fashion, which is insanely exciting. I can't wait for you guys to hear the episode. Follow all the socials, follow us on Spotify, and subscribe if you're on iTunes. I love you guys. You are perfect the way you are. See you next week.